For this episode of the Future Humans 3.0 podcast show, we welcome the incredible John Buzzell. John is an award-winning leader in the digital industry, creating immersive experiences across augmented reality, virtual reality, video games, mobile apps, and numerous high-volume websites. John advises companies and leads teams in order to build and grow and scale with these immersive exponential technologies. John is currently the lead enterprise BD at Unreal Engine's Epic Games, and recently was the co-author alongside the amazing Cathy Hackl for the incredible book, The Augmented Workforce, How AR, AI, and 5G Will Impact Every Dollar You Make. Welcome, John, to the Holoship. How are you?
Thank you, Sammy. It's really good to be with you. I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to have this chat.
It's such an honor to connect. I've read your book, I think 3 times by now, and it's so prophetic and insightful, and I'll get to that really shortly. But I guess the best way to kick this all off is you're currently working at Unreal Engine's Epic Games. You've had an amazing career journey. I would love to hear the origin story of how you got into all these immersive technologies.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a fun story. I feel very fortunate in that, being born in the 70s, I really got to see kind of some of that last gasp of, a society not so influenced by, digital media or social media or mobile technology. And so I was, probably, I guess 7 or 8 when I got access to my first video game system and computer, and it was really a different time back then when, there were no experiences to have. Really the thing to do was to try to create with those types of things. And so it bred kind of a tinkerer's approach to technology that I've carried through, a 30-year career. And, was involved with the kind of computer club in high school, and then got into college, really was working, full time, to be honest, on CD-ROMs back when I was in college. We had just gotten a bunch of Macintosh computers in the art school. So I set that up and got course credit for teaching everybody how to use some of those earliest, versions of Director, which eventually kind of was the forebear of Flash. Which of course, predated a lot of the interactive technology we use today. Early 3D animation software that became kind of like an Autodesk Maya type of software. So it was really a very special time, and I'm very grateful for how it worked out. I have been a part of every major technology transition in the last 30 plus years. And, a lot of things change. Of course, the terminology often changes. The capabilities of the technologies change. But when you work from, diskette into CD-ROM and CD-ROM into narrowband internet and broadband and into mobile and social and a few times through with AR and VR, you really see those themes. You watch how people adopt and what holds them back. You see what you can do and what can't be done well. And you get a sense of almost like waiting to surf a wave. You kind of get a sense of the momentum building, and that's really guided me throughout my career. So I was thrilled to write the book with Cathy, and I think we work together very well, the two of us. She has this amazing network, and I'm lucky to have a lot of experience. And so, yeah, very glad to be with you. Thank you.
Well, that's an amazing journey and story, and it's really cool because you've got this eagle view of seeing the industry change over time. Gives you that foresight and strategy perspective. And so I'd love to now talk about your book. Congratulations, it's absolutely incredible. As I said, I think I read it 3 times by now, and I love how it goes into detail with each industry, and I'm particularly interested in the entertainment industry, and I'll get to that later. But first of all, I'd just love to know how it was, the process of planning, writing, and releasing this book in such a fast-paced tech industry.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a fun story. I met Cathy when I was leading a team called You Are Here Immersive Labs. And this is a small group in Atlanta, Georgia in the States. And we were doing augmented and virtual reality and some other emerging technology work for a variety of global brands like Porsche and Coca-Cola and AT&T, which is a popular telecom company in the States here. And anyway, Cathy had just come off of a gig with HTC, and we actually hired her on to be a futurist in residence with us. And it was before she had gone on to Magic Leap Yeah, at one point she asked me to have lunch with her at this place where robots deliver your pizza.
Whoa.
And the pizza the robot looked like Rosie the robot from the Jetsons, and it's
Yes.
delivering our pizza. And at that moment she says, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" And Cathy Hackl asks you if you want to write a book, like, what are you going to say, right? So I said, yeah, I think so. Tell me a little bit more. And she said, well, the title of the book is The Augmented Workforce: How AR, AI, and 5G Will Impact Every Dollar You Make. Like, from the beginning, she had the title.
Boom.
And I said, I think we can write that book together. I feel like I could help. And so, we wrote a bunch of different outlines and threw it away and started over. And we really started to feel that burden that if we were going to commit this to paper and people were going to like kill trees to make it, and then take time and their money to read it, that it better be good. Yeah. And I think that's something that any author confronts, is that, when you're in a meeting with somebody, maybe you're pitching a client on a new kind of NFT or AR project or whatever, talk can be fast and loose and people get excited. But when you write a book, like, it better be truthful. It better be, empirical. It better be real. And so what we did was we started filling out on that outline almost, it's not for people like us that understand technology. It's for those people that we try to encourage to adopt the technology, whether they be clients or new employees or relatives, people that don't come from this place of tinkering and loving tech.
Yeah.
So for those people who maybe feel vulnerable that they don't know what all these things mean, we wanted to have a book for them, which, by the way, has a gorgeous cover that Lorenzo Melito did. And we'll get into that in a second. But I tried to instill in the book what I had learned about the right ways and the wrong ways to explain technology, and to give people a frame based on what they probably already know to make sense of the new stuff. And at the same time, Cathy canvassed her huge network to be able to say, well, who are the people that are really doing this and succeeding and can share their stories? And so with that framework, with those project experiences, and then layering in with, kind of almost like reports from the field, you've read it a few times, you know that it lays out for people all that they need to know to get into new technology and to start to put it to work in their own business.
I love that. And even though I've read it 3 times, I feel like I still am always like coming back to it and learning something new, because that's what I love about this book. Like, it's so, it's got so much foresight that you can just keep reverting back to it. And, when you want to funnel in on a particular industry or a particular technology. And what I also love about the book is like this Protopian vision, and you said that when you came up with the idea, like, you had the Jetsons, the robots serving the pizza. And I really love the idea of like, manifesting a positive future and using technology as a force for good. And what's also amazing is like it goes through the ethical implications and the impact it will have from a company level to an individual level with all these technologies. And that's something that I really appreciate, because that's the future that we're all going to be living in. So what was that process like, researching and writing about these technologies and considering all the ethical implications as well?
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into it. I think there's a dozen or more, maybe 20 pages of footnotes in this book. It's been a while since I've checked. But our wonderful editor, Lily Snyder, really helped us go through and track down the things that we had heard or learned over the years, and source them all. So not only will this book kind of narratively pull you through all of these pieces of technologies and stories that you need to know to work in the field, but you can also like go back to the original article and find the stats or like the white paper that drove that insight. So that was a lot of the work. In terms of the Protopian aspect to it, I was reading this amazing blog called The Convivial Society, and it was talking about how digital society is really making a place for robots, where everything is based on exhaustion of opportunities, exhaustion of budget, exhaustion of time. And it's a little bleak, to be honest, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? I mean, we're human beings. We've been around for, hundreds of thousands of years. And we're used to navigating the world. And I think this is a chance to regain some of the humanity that we've lost kind of staring at the kind of mirror with narcissism of social media and trying to attract likes and engagement. And, you know, it's not just going to be those in the in crowd that are currently using all these technologies. It's going to be everybody else too. And so we thought about what is the hopeful, accessible, friendly message that we can put forth, and how can we give people the confidence to go to build that future. So this certainly won't get them all the way there, but hopefully it sets them off on the right foot, you know?
Oh, for sure. And you had some amazing reviews from, I'm just reading the back of it, Mike Pell from Microsoft Design Garage. And he said, the most prescient and valuable book published to date on why we need to embrace the tsunami of digital transformation happening all around us. And then you even had, was it Kuki the AI, give a review on the back of the book?
That's right. Yeah. So one of the kind of quote unquote oldest conversational AIs, Kuki, K-U-K-I, which, you know, if you Google that, you will find her and can start conversing with her on a number of different platforms. We fed her the book, right? Like she took the manuscript and she ingested all of it. And then we could talk about it, which was really kind of a surreal experience, to be honest, because it was quite a good interview considering she's a piece of software. And so we asked her what she thought about the book. And that was the quote. And we didn't edit it. We just put it right on the back. So that may be the first quote from a conversational AI, a first testimonial for any product. I don't know. But that was a fun thing that Cathy brought to the project.
Yeah, I love it because you're talking about this futuristic text, and then you actually have an interview with a conversational AI and get a book review. And then on top of that, let's talk about the cover of the book, the augmented reality version as well that you did for the Augmented Workforce. So cool. Do you want to talk about that a bit further?
Yeah, sure. Before we do, it wouldn't be a book interview for me unless I plugged Mike Pell's book. Not because he asked me to, but because it is a fantastic book. If you are somebody that feels like this book is great for a first read and I'm going to hand it to my friends, but I really would like to go deeper and understand what are the kind of information architecture or user experience opportunities or necessities for building out the metaverse or all of the spatial reality experiences that we want to have. His book, The Age of Smart Information, is, I think, an amazing jumping off point for that discussion. For instance, in the future, whether you call it the magic verse, the mirror world, the metaverse, whatever it is, spatial computing, when you encounter a mundane object out in the world, let's say it's a car, or a fire hydrant, or a mailbox, whatever it would be, you have a potential to interact with that and learn more about it, whether it's how to fix it or what does it mean for you? Is it a bus schedule? And the people that design the digital experience that goes with those things have a lot to consider. What if the person that you're dealing with is colorblind? What if they're dyslexic? What if they're visually impaired? What if they're in a hurry? What if they're 8 years old? So in the way that cascading style sheets imbued the markup of the web with presentation and flexibility that can move from tablet to desktop or down to mobile, so too will content creators in the metaverse have to think of all those eventualities or sensibilities. And his book, The Age of Smart Information, is great for that. So I just had to plug his book. I recommend everybody that watches this go buy it and read it. It's great. So just like the AI, conversational AI testimonial on the back of the book, we wanted to dog food the technology wherever we could. And so Oscar Cartagena, who is this wonderful social AR developer, created 3 different AR lenses with Facebook AR that you can experience by holding the book up to your camera. There are web URLs which you can put with this interview for people to go check it out on their own. But it brings the cover to life with a lot of different effects. The cover just comes to life. Or if you want to home in on kind of, there's a 5G theme and an AR theme and an AI theme. For those, for that, those filters are. So anyway, he did a great job, and we thought it was another fun way for people to get more out of the book.
I love that. I love augmented reality as well. So thank you for sharing. So let's go and deep dive into your book a little further and talk about these different technologies. So in chapter 26, you wrote "Seeing the Future with Fresh Eyes," and there's a particular quote I'm just going to read out here in regards to artificial intelligence. So AI can use voices and speech patterns to communicate with people who prefer different sounds and styles. If a client is more comfortable speaking with a woman, my device could theoretically transform my virtual face and voice to communicate more effectively to close the deal. Wow, what a profound quote and statement with the capabilities of these technologies. I'd love to hear further about this and what this means for both businesses and even on a personal level.
Sure. Well, we already do this now, right? I mean, ever since somebody, reached down into the mud and smeared it on their face to blend in to the shadows, or, to cover their scent when they were hunting, we've always, as human beings, modified the traces that we leave behind or that we present to the world in order to achieve the outcomes that we want more quickly or more deeply, or what have you. And whether it's putting on makeup, or holding your phone a certain way to get an angle that's more flattering or more dramatic or whatever, we're always trying to like cheat and game the system a little bit to get the result that we want. I mean, like even right now, I'm covering up a few of my wrinkles with the automatic airbrush in Zoom, right? So like this is with us already. But at the opposite end of the spectrum, near the state of the art, you look at what you're doing with your VTuber rig. You've got this identity that you want to project into the content that you create, and technology lets you do that in real time. You don't have to send it off to a post-production VFX team to do this. You're able to do this with technology that's cheap or free, and with a little bit of elbow grease, you can put this together and you can evolve it as you go. And so currently, people are consuming this media as flat media, right? But in the future, and even now today, depending on what technologies you use, this can be completely dynamic. So, today I'm seeing you this way with this avatar as you have it designed, but I could come back and listen to the same interview if this was done as a runtime application or pixel streamed, where your avatar has evolved.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that will sneak up on us, and it kind of already is when you think of people using snap lenses or filters on their Tinder profile. If they're coloring a photo, adjusting the brightness and contrast before they post it to social media or put it on their Christmas cards. We've always altered perceptions. And I think this will be no different. So Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix were just talking about the process of being captured for this experience that Epic Games did with Unreal Engine 5. And, it got into, what does it mean about likeness versus performance? And, Keanu was saying that early on, maybe even 15, 20 years ago, he put into his contracts that he had final approval over any recreations using his likeness. And he talked about taking his digital capture of his body and face and giving that to the estate, after he leaves the earth, because that will be a valuable thing. Yeah. So, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I do think that just like the things that we blog, or the videos that we create, or the books that we write, that the visual aspects, or the oral aspects of our personality, those are assets like anything else that people can pick up and continue a story or a character. And there's just the applications of that no end.
Thank you. You did answer my question, and I really agree. And with The Matrix as well, huge fan. And it's amazing to see the latest that Epic Games is doing as well, and also with all these immersive storytelling experiences, and they can download on PlayStation and Xbox. So cool. And seeing the Unreal Engine 5 as well, and the digital humans. And I also recently saw the MetaHumans for the NFT with with all these MetaHumans with Matrix. Yeah. So cool. And I agree with you. It's like it's altering perceptions. And I guess this relates back to this Protopian vision, right? With tech, there's always the good and the not so good. And so like being mindful about all of this. So like I from my personal experience, I love it from a storytelling angle, like embracing this superheroine character. And if you look on the other side of the spectrum, authenticity and retaining that sense of humanity, what are your thoughts on that in terms of where this could evolve to in Web3 when, we see this evolution already happening with digital twins, and then it could lead to AI and deepfakes?
Yeah, I mean, we're already there, right? I mean, going back to, and I'm sure there are other examples, but as an American, this has been my experience. Going back to the election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, there were alterations of images and video that were used to dissuade people from voting for a particular candidate. Or when, Obama was president, his likeness was altered to give people one particular, feeling about him. The dark side usually gets there more quickly because there's an aggressive pursuit of whether it's chaos or a particular outcome, theft or grift or whatever it would be. They find those things first. The more challenging thing is to, how do you protect the light? Because they're two sides of the same coin. How do you protect humanity in a world where kind of resources are less scarce, and like kind of the rapacious nature of someone to defraud someone else, or to spread their message of negativity further and further and further. Like, if that doesn't cost you any more to get to 10 million people than it did to get to 1 million people, or marginally only, there. So like, what's to stop it? So I think look, the web had decades of research that went into the Advanced Research Projects Agency and ARPANET. And there was the Well, which was that first community around a BBS in San Francisco, based out of San Francisco. And then there was the W3C, and like the web really came from like hippies and librarians. So there was this mothering instinct that came with the web, and it was based on information, and it's taken 30, 40 years for it to grow into what it is now. The metaverse is not starting there. The metaverse doesn't necessarily have that anchor or that custodial guidance that the web had. And so it's on each of us. And that's part of the vision for this book.
Yes.
Is to remind people that we're humans, and we're wielding a tool with this technology, and we can create for good or for evil. And here are the ways that it could go wrong, but here are the ways that we could get it right. So I think, digital humans, the governments will be slow to protect citizens from this type of thing. And my hope would be that, that consumers can express their, or protect their sovereignty with their money in a way that the courts will not be able to protect them. So, for instance, somebody stole photos from me on an old Flickr profile and are using it to, catfish people on Twitter.
Right.
Now I don't really share photos as much anymore. Hopefully people can learn their own lessons more easily and protect those sort of things, or can they secure their own avatars on the blockchain in a way that keeps other people from using, nearest neighbor kind of likenesses.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's so true, like protecting self-sovereign identity, when with this Web3 and spatial web and the convergence of all these technologies, and really valuing the ethics, and with like the progression and of these exponential technologies. I've read the singularity is near, so I'm very intrigued by, these artificial intelligence, and we're seeing BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, and this concept of the Neuroverse, and like there's always beauty and there's always not so much beauty as well with these technologies, and that's something I think it's important for us all to be mindful of. Especially with like this concept of the metaverse and the spatial web, and protecting privacy, but at the same time acknowledging the beauty with all this technology for connection in like boundless new ways.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to traverse a lot of destruction and a lot of pain to get to that, future existence that we all want. That hyper reality video that came out in 2015 or whenever, where, this poor woman who's using clearly some sort of subsidized mixed reality experience where there's just ads flying at her from every corner of the screen or from her view. And then it breaks down and she has to, make all these decisions to be able to even get it back. That was really profound. And I don't think people saw it for what it truly meant at the time. But it's a slippery slope in terms of, oh, well, this is convenient for me to get my body scanned at the Gap. And this is convenient for me to take the free filters from Facebook. And this is convenient for me to, get this voice modulating technology from this, clip art site that I found on the internet. Yes. People may be giving away their likeness in the process, the way I accidentally gave away my likeness on Flickr back in 2012, 2013. And if we're not careful, and this is already going on now, people's images will show up in marketing campaigns. People's images they may encounter an NPC that's a bank teller. This could happen soon. Yeah. And the digital human is based on their own face. So it's like you walk up to deal with some sort of conversational AI that's got a, digital human avatar in front of them, and you'd be like looking in the mirror. Yes. We're all going to go through this together, and there's going to be a lot of bumps.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, isn't that the excitement though and power potentially of blockchain as well for protection of self-sovereign identity? Do you want to expand a bit further about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a weighty topic. But yeah. So right now, there are, for those of you who have not delved into this too deeply, there are high transaction costs for being able to put something on the blockchain in terms of like having the technology and having the ability to transact, to write something or to read something out of a particular blockchain. And, whether it's, gas fees or finding an appropriate technology that offers you the security and the durability of that connection between the data and the record that you need. That's tough right now, but it won't be like that forever. Just like streaming video used to be expensive and it isn't anymore. It's kind of approached free at this point. Yes. So when you use something like that to protect your identity, whether it be your physical likeness or your voice or the mannerisms, the way that you move or speak, or like, in Westworld, they would talk about the complications, the little wrinkle that you'd get in your dimple when somebody said something nice about you and you got embarrassed or whatever it would be, right? Like we all have these little idiosyncratic things that make us who we are and make us recognizable to others. So how deep does that go in terms of your record? Is it your image? That's not enough. Is it your voice print? That's not enough. Is it going to be kind of some LiDAR scan of you reciting some common phrase or passage to capture all of those things, and that becomes yours? At that point, you're really talking about what makes us like everybody else too, because somebody else out there, or maybe 10,000 other people, have those same qualities that I have, in terms of the way I wrinkle my nose when somebody says something funny or whatever. So I think we're all glossing over the depth and the complexity of this when we rave about the opportunities in the metaverse. Like my desk is covered with, remotes and soda cans and, car keys. And when we think about getting together in the metaverse, we're not thinking of all the dirt. I think Laurie Anderson, the performance artist, said there's no dirt in the metaverse. There's no dirt in virtual reality. Like we're going to need to create that. And all those little pieces of, kind of organic, disarray, that's what makes us human. That's what makes us feel at home. And if all of that has to be written into the blockchain, that's going to take a really long time to figure out. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I feel like I can feel the excitement. It feels like a new renaissance. It's like this decentralized family with all these communities emerging. It's great to see the creator community. And I think we're in this building phase, for the next couple of years, 10 years. But I'm very interested in like being mindful of the whole ethics side, because just like me embracing this character for my music project, being like this super sentient superheroine, AI superheroine, but I'm a human driving this. But it's interesting because it makes me think about artificial intelligence. It makes me think about the Neuroverse and like brain-computer interfaces and how do we protect our own minds, but at the same time, the beauty of connecting with other humans and like what makes us human and like that empowering human beings, but at the same time using technology as a force for good.
I'm curious. I love that you're doing this, and I'm sure you've gained many insights from creating this character, from expressing this character, not only in pieces like this, but in your musical catalog that you're building out with your songs and the videos that go with them. What do you have you learned any truths more deeply about humanity from wearing this kind of, pardon the expression, but wearing this mask all the time?
Yeah, I mean, this is meant to be an interview, but thank you so much for the question. I really
Sure.
appreciate that. Yes, yeah, I definitely have. I've been writing like this album to tell this narrative arc story that I'm just created, but I want to create an immersive experience for everyone and other characters in this story. And I had to do a lot of research as much as I could, and it was a whole new world. I'm still every day I'm learning. It's like this hyper growth, like growth hack mentality. But reading a lot of books like The Singularity is Near and The Spatial Web, and it definitely did make me realize how beautiful and empowering it is to be a human, because like humans have this sense of creativity, this sense of spirituality, and I think artificial intelligence is going to be really important for humans to progress, as like a human race. But at the same time, I think it's important to not lose sight of what makes humans so special, and embracing that connection with one another and not losing sight of that. So it's been a really interesting process. Like it's a bit of a reverse psychology taking on this character because I'm a human, but I have to almost go into the mindset of what it would be like speculatively from a pure science fiction, purely from my perspective point of view,
Sure.
of what it would be like being a super sentient AI. But even that, I have to be honest, I cannot even fathom, because it's like once you hit the singularity point and artificial intelligence, advances to become super intelligent, like Nick Bostrom would say, like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
how can you even predict that? Like it's almost like it's like the day after, like does everything go dark? Like how do you predict that? So this is purely a speculative fun passion of mine, because I'm really passionate and interested about these topics because it affects us as humans in our real life.
Have you read the vulnerable world hypothesis?
No. What's that
Oh, you've
about?
got to read this. Okay, so it's pretty short. It's a white paper, the vulnerable world hypothesis, and just like Nick Bostrom talking about superintelligence or the gray goo theory, it just talks about how ridiculously lucky humanity has been with these general purpose technologies or technologies in general, that could cause complete chaos and ruin. And, it posits that almost like a gumball machine, that every time you turn the mechanism, you get a different colored ball. And some balls are light colored, some balls are gray, and some balls are black. And it's saying we really haven't gotten a black ball yet, but there's got to be one coming. So, for instance, like nuclear proliferation, that has the potential to be a black ball. It feels like humanity's been somewhat lucky in terms of trying to manage the destructive capabilities of loose nukes or even organized nukes. But is AI the next one? We don't necessarily need to have a high functioning AI that kind of extinguishes the human species. But if we had one that just optimized for a particular outcome, like the paperclip game, where the thing
Yeah.
keeps buying the wire to make the paperclips and eventually fills up the entire world and the universe with paperclips, um, we don't have this tiger by the tail. It's not even clear, if it's going to have us by the tail or where it's going to fit.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean that humanity should just stick its head in the sand and wait until it's over. Like we have this opportunity to wield these technologies in a humane way, ways that reduce or end suffering, that can hopefully help us from some of our own dysfunctions as a species. And yeah, it's we're all on this ride together, and I don't know that we're going to see the outcome in our lifetimes, but it'll be a lot of excitement along the way for sure.
Yeah, wow. I'm just taking in everything that you were saying, and it reminds me as well of a book, Life 3.0, Max Tegmark, and it talks about different timelines and different outcomes and ways it can go, and this whole Prometheus story. And of course, this just inspires my story. And I also Star Trek. I love Star Trek and Star Wars, and it's all this popular culture, stories and movies that we get to experience, witness, and and it impacts our mindsets. And that's like something I'm really passionate about, like with storytelling. It's like, because a thought, a manifestation, a creative idea can manifest into building these technologies, which ultimately impacts our future. So this nicely brings back to your book, and how it definitely shows this protopian vision, and how we can wield these technologies as a force for good, and and also be cognizant and aware of things like we need to consider, like ethical considerations. So that I'll segue to about 5G and spatial computing. So in chapter 24 of the Augmented Workforce, there was this fantastic quote, which was, "Companies who invest in spatial computing and 5G networks can gain back employee trust. Those that put cybersecurity first and prove themselves to be ethical have a chance to create a whole new market of experience that customers have never dreamed of." So I'd love to hear about how these technologies can build trust.
Definitely. So, there are a lot of companies that are still undergoing a digital transformation that they began in the aughts, right? Closer to 2000. And it may have been to replace their hard-coded website with a content managed website. It may be to revise their mobile app, or employ responsive web design, or whatever it would be. A lot of them are still kind of dusting themselves off after the last digital transition. And meanwhile, here come all of these exponential technologies that just sound like more gobbledygook to the average middle manager, but are so radically different than all of the kind of publishing focused technologies that we've been dealing with for the last 30, 40 years. So we wanted to explain what a hammer was. We wanted to put it in people's hands. We wanted to show them a house and get them started swinging. And so there are multiple vertical industries described in the book, with ways to use the technology for each. And there are also kind of horizontal segments, like marketing or research and development, that you could, matrix to. Just like you said, you feel like you could go back through the book and find examples that you didn't see before. So we tried to make it that way, where you could just turn to any page and learn something. Yes. And to your question, I think employees have lost a lot of trust. People are calling what the world is going through right now, with the worker shortages, the great resignation. The scales have not been balanced in a very long time, and people have felt spied upon. People have felt like they gave value that was not well compensated. They feel like they have worked in a way that was not equitable. And so when your contributions can be attributed to you durably, even within a supply chain where you're making sugar and it ends up as a candy bar, that's one way that people can feel like they have a clear accounting of the value that they provide. Secondly, with training that can be done, there's this great company called Equal Reality that puts you in the shoes of people from diverse backgrounds and lets you experience what it's like to walk in their footsteps, and be discriminated against through microaggressions, or how hard it is to get your idea across where people won't even make eye contact with you, or how difficult is it to get to your desk when there's not an accessible building. So immersive technologies can help create empathy where there wasn't before, and for the companies that provide that training, there's a mutual respect that's engendered that wouldn't be perhaps previously. In terms of 5G, we'll just use 5G as kind of a token here in this discussion. Yep. People haven't really needed a lot of wireless radio technologies in the sense of a handset in the last 2 years, because so many people, especially information workers, have been working from home. and they want to keep working from home in many cases. So companies that allow you to continue to work remotely, whether that's at home or in the field, that give you that flexibility, that is another form of respect and compensation that you can give to someone who is creating value for your company. Even if it's inequitable, it closes that gap some. And so all of these technologies assist in the creation of value. They can assist in the kind of accounting of value creation. And companies that employ them can really, they can help balance the scales in a way that ever since the earliest days of supervised agriculture has not been that way.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering. Yeah, and that also makes me think of like other empowering technologies such as blockchain gaming and play to earn. So I've been following the Axie Infinity as well as Star Atlas, which is Solana blockchain, and Star Atlas has beautiful high quality visuals with Unreal Engine 5, and I just love this concept. It's foreign to a lot of people, but this concept of play to earn. Would you like to speak further about this?
This is one of those topics that it's touchy for people in the games industry. And like, I work on the enterprise side of Epic Games, but games is in the name of the company. And I'm certainly not here to represent Epic Games in this conversation or to kind of interpret things that the company has said. But I think I agree it's an interesting space. I really enjoy playing video games, ever going back to like the Magnavox Odyssey in 1977 or whenever I first laid my hands on it. So games for me are recreation. I don't ever feel like I'm creating value except maybe within a community. And even then it's just as another node on the network. Like I don't really see myself as doing more for a game than anybody else. And I don't want to be compensated for it, because then there's an implied obligation that I have to show up on time and I have to do a good job. Games for me are recreation. And so I think it's interesting that people can do it and that they would want to do it. But I also don't want anyone to end up like a Chinese gold farmer in World of Warcraft back in the 2010s, where people were playing to earn, but it was a very different sort of proposition, right? What do you think?
Well, yeah, good point. I think it's important not to look at anything with rose-colored lenses, and I guess everyone's situations are different, and I think it's just interesting because I'm sure play to earn's been around for a while. I've been speaking with various people, but yeah, like it's definitely dominated more of the pop cultural zeitgeist this year with the talks of the metaverse and people, starting new projects and all these communities that are emerging. Like Discord's just going crazy with all these servers and different communities and projects, and like Star Atlas being one of them. So yeah, I just really am intrigued by the space and been following it, and it's just interesting to see how different people feel like that they want to join in and contribute to the space with their time and be compensated for it. So yeah, definitely something to keep watching for sure. It also makes me think though, even not in play to earn, just generally with games like Fortnite, Roblox, you've got Fortnite Creative and Roblox and Robux. Like people are so creative. Oh, and Decentraland as well. Like people are so creative and contributing to these games with digital assets and 3D objects. So I think it's really interesting to see how like everyone around the world can get involved.
Some of the companies are starting to talk more about an open metaverse, Epic being one of them. And getting back to what we were talking about earlier about the charter and the custodianship of the web, and how that was kind of very lovingly launched out to sea, and maybe the metaverse doesn't have that yet. I think there's a real urgency there. The metaverse has to be open. No one can or should own the metaverse. It may be driven by an economy where right now we're putting dollars into Robux, we're putting dollars into V-Bucks, we're putting dollars into Bells, in Animal Crossing, even if indirectly. But when that money starts coming back out, where you can sell your V-Bucks or you can sell your Robux, it gets more interesting. Like we're experiencing that all right now with cryptocurrency, right? With
Yeah.
altcoin. And to the degree that those are employed across different games, as opposed to having kind of native currencies within them, like Upland or something like that. It's too early to tell how it will work,
Yeah.
but I hope it becomes seamless, where it's not like going to the airport and having to exchange, Aussie dollars for US dollars. Like it's got to be easier than that. Like I don't want it to be an opportunity for middlemen to, anyway.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's heady. It's heady stuff, and I think we need to have a group of companies try to set some ground rules and then live up to them. And as these experiences get created, people are going to put a lot of value into those experiences, just like they did in the early days of the web or the early days of social media. And I think there's going to be some waste. There's going to be some loss.
Yes.
But we need it to kind of launch that in, out to sea, just like the web did. What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. And like, as you said, we're very early, like it's still very early days. Everyone's building. I mean, it's been around for a while, but like definitely dominating the popular cultural zeitgeist, especially this year. And there is a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. I think it's important to keep that. And at the same time, be mindful that like there will be failures along the way and there will be a bumpy rides. But you know what? What's also cool, I'm just going to pivot now to like these games like Fortnite and Roblox, is like you can do these amazing concert experiences, and like just from the entertainment industry, I guess I'm funneling in here with the entertainment industry and technologies that you talk about in your book. You have a chapter on entertainment like XR, 5G, motion capture. I can attest to that, wearing a Rococo motion capture suit now, DIY style. So I really appreciate like these technologies and storytelling. So what are your thoughts on all of this and the future for it?
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot in there. Let's unpack that. So first of all, you have the content creation tools, and you've done a great job with your rig here. You've built your character. You've put a rig to it. You've hooked it up to motion capture, and then you're rendering it in real time, and you're still putting it in with all the other inputs that you need to create this frame that you've got. And you're a part of a small but growing community of people that are expressing themselves in this way. But this is the hardest it will ever be, right? All the trials that you've gone through to get to this frame that everybody's looking at right now. This is the hardest, right? This is the Atari 2600. This is the worst it will ever be. In the early days of digital video, it was really hard to get a good image. It was really hard to get one that you could send to people that was bigger than a postage stamp. And of course now, like you can go to the, drugstore and you can get a 4K camera and start making this stuff. So too will it be with scanning, with motion capture. I've seen lots of projects that use a phone camera not only to do like a live link style facial capture, but PCAP, where you're getting like the whole body. So the idea that you would just park any old camera on your computer or your laptop and get all of the PCAP that you would need, a performance capture that you would need, that's really close. It just needs to be commercialized and mass distributed. In terms of, certainly MetaHuman from Epic Games is a way to take something that used to take teams of people months, if not years, and many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you can, my 8-year-old, or 10-year-old daughter now can do it in 10 minutes. And then in terms of the entertainment opportunities that creates, watching the video game, the Game Awards last night, you see a parade of 3.5 hours of like highly stylized, highly produced content, interactive content. And you realize just the untold hours that went into creating that. But, much in the way that, interactive or participatory theater is, where you kind of can walk around and, like going to the Renaissance Fair and experience people playing a character. It's not anywhere like, if you can have a gig economy where somebody is doing tech support for 10 minutes at a time, why can't you have, that approach applied to theater or to a video game? Why do you need an NPC where someone could make,
Yes.
$1.75 by stepping into, Castle Guard 3271 and having an interaction?
Yeah.
And to me, that's a more interesting kind of play to earn, where you're playing a dramatic part in someone else's story, but you're a real human being. I think this was kind of brought to light most, enjoyably in that Free Guy movie that just came out. Have you seen that?
No, not yet. It sounds good.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds plays this NPC who kind of like wakes up and has an intelligent moment, and then he kind of breaks free and starts engaging a player, a human.
Whoa.
And it's really interesting.
That sounds incredible. It definitely makes me think about this concept of our digital twins or AI or characters of that, can kind of just traverse this metaverse even when humans are sleeping, and how do you, customize those settings, or how do you know if this AI develops sentience over time, that it won't just go rogue? There's a fun science fiction concept.
What if there was almost an interview that would be conducted by an AI that you could go through on a video camera, and not only did it capture those complications, those idiosyncratic movements and gestures and things that we do that make up our personality, but it also captured enough speech patterns and enough things that you would say, almost like some kind of a reverse Turing test, that it would create a digital character of you that would stand in for you when you were sleeping. So it's still you, but it's a projected image of you, or it's a version of you, just kind of based on somebody like thumbing through your personality for an hour. And what's the residual value of that? Just like when you publish a book, you don't have to be there to write it for somebody when they read it 10 years later.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be a potential outcome for influencers, personalities, actors, that kind of thing?
I definitely personally find it shocking, the concept of it, but I think people, like the frog in boiling water, over time it might become more accepted of an idea. But I think, it's really hard to tell at this stage, but I think if we embrace the ethics around it early, before even the tech is fully there, I think then we'll be on a good path. So it's exciting, because there are positives and benefits to this as well. So it's important to acknowledge both sides of the spectrum. So with that concept of representation in the metaverse, just getting back to specifically now the entertainment industry, I saw the show Alter Ego this year, which is really cool, and I'd like to see singers take on these avatar personas, and that's how you perceive them, and amazing technology that was used, and it's really exciting to see that become accepted in the popular zeitgeist, just as something new as well. So I'm just wondering, have you seen the show, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've got a surprise for you. That's actually one of my customers on our business at Epic Games on the Unreal Engine team. So Silver Spoon Animation, who did that work for Fox Alternative Entertainment. I've met those people a couple of years ago and have watched their capabilities mature using Unreal Engine. It's been an amazing thing to watch. They were already doing great work with brands on social media, where they would do this type of almost VTuber sort of thing, where you would interact with a brand in real time, and it would be a live stream viewed through Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
Yes.
But they took those same tools and they started applying them in different ways. And so for Major League Baseball here in the States, they would fill in the crowd in the stands with virtual people that would cheer and wave and do all the kind of crowd dynamic stuff that they would do. Or they did broadcast augmented reality graphics for the American Super Bowl event, the largest television event in our country usually. And they did other things. And I remember when they first got this. By the time this is published, there'll be a spotlight story on unrealengine.com where people can read more about this.
Fantastic.
But they were approached with this concept of saying that, to your point, there are people who, because of, where they came from or what's happened to them in their lives, they are not going to be kind of the next top 40 American Idol type of pop star. And by putting a real-time 3D virtual avatar character on top of their physical performance, it really lets their personality and their artistry come through.
Yes.
Much in the way that you're doing this right now with your character. Yeah. And so the show, I have seen it. I kind of watched the process as they created it, and it was just amazing to see what it did for these contestants on the show, and how it let them tell their story without the audience judging them. The audience watches it happen on screens. The judges watch it happen on screens, and then the performers are backstage behind a curtain. And so it's this near future. It feels like a postcard from next year, that show, because it's just this near future glimpse of what humanity and creativity can mean when you disintermediate the physical aspects of it, right? When you can just be yourself, your pure essence.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And it kind of makes me think of this anthropological perspective of like humanity, and it's like our spirits in our actual organic human bodies is our avatars. Like it's the derivative, like the origin word of the avatar. So we're just taking this to a new digital layer, like an augmented layer. It's that same concept in my eyes of just like letting that spirit and essence shine through. So I definitely see the beautifulness and empowerment of that show. And it's really interesting though, because I love live music. I love, being in a crowd and experiencing that. I love in real life. And I get asked a lot of the time, like, are you implying that we're getting rid of like live music? Are we getting rid of the human performer? Are you saying it's really interesting. And I think, it's each to their own, but at the same time, there's like this idea of like the physical and the digital converging. So having, my ideal version for myself, like, is that ability to tell stories like with motion capture or digitally, but also be able to connect with people in real life, whether I'm cosplaying in character or being myself or whatever. It's still like there's that, but maybe using extended reality in the form of a live performance. Maybe it's myself and the avatar together, or maybe it's just the avatar. But I think, acknowledging that flexibility of the physical and the digital as well is really exciting.
Oh, I completely agree. And you are leading the charge in many ways, doing what you're doing, right? It's funny. I think maybe our first avatar, in human history was writing. That idea that you could divorce things that were said from the speaker, and that you could send the words on their own. Before that, you might not take someone's message because you didn't like the way they looked. And being able to send the words gave you it liberated the thought from the thinker. And I think in the same way, to your point, we can liberate not only, where we are, bound to a certain piece of geography on our planet. We can liberate our voice across the world, but we can bring those fans to us too. I'm aware of a project that's going on right now that's seeking to do just that. Not only, playing virtually, but having people attend physically and virtually at the same time. So it's like these types of things you can really start to mix and match in a way that is extremely powerful, in a way that humanity needs to connect right now. And it gives creators like you, the opportunity and the means to be able to get your voice beyond, who can hear you at the back of the concert hall, or how far can you, or which countries will accept the import of a particular piece of media. It's an amazing time. And I think there will be a renaissance of creative expression for all these tools, just like there was, a huge surge in creative expression when YouTube really caught on as the dominant video sharing site in the early 2000s. You couldn't have TikTok without YouTube. You couldn't have had YouTube without Google, and you couldn't have had Google without the work that was being done on the early web, back in the kind of like late 80s, early 90s. And so these things sneak up on us, but I think this has been building pressure and is about to burst forth in a way that, a lot of people aren't expecting, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Oh, it's so exciting. And it makes me think, like they use the word physical and digital, but it's just a way to quickly explain what you're referring to,
Right.
to the tech community. But yeah, what really excites me as well is like the storytelling, and kind of like you have like musicals, but like shows, and people play roles and characters, but like musicals, like video game characters. And what would that be like in the future? You do your in real life performances as a human, but in the future, like if you're no longer around or whatever, would people take on the role of your character and carry on that musical and that show and that story? That's something that really fascinates and intrigues me, because I love entertainment. I love storytelling. I love shows, live concerts, from electronic to musicals. So yeah, it's really cool to implement technologies such as Unreal Engine. Yeah. Really excited about it.
We'll all have a chance to be telling and living stories all the time, in the near future, and we'll be cosplaying all the time in the near future. I think all of us have experienced a lot of fatigue looking at each other through webcams for the last 2 years. But if we can bring some creativity to that moment in a way where people can't see our faces, much the way that when you feel liberated when you put a mask on, I think it's really going to set a lot of people free. I'm kind of an extroverted introvert myself. And so I feel a lot of freedom in VR, like in VR chat, for instance, to do and say the things that are really on my mind, instead of being such a kind of like a C-3PO kind of diplomacy robot all the time. So I think, I agree with you. It's going to be amazing to watch this flourish.
Yes. And so, John, what would be your top tip for individuals and companies that are looking to adopt these new frontier technologies as the world progresses?
Sure. There's a saying in the game industry, it's fail fast and find the fun. I think a lot of people get very timid when they encounter new technology, especially people that are right now generationally, like boomers and Generation X, even some millennials that are in a position to spend money on behalf of a company. They get worried about making a mistake, and digital is kind of the end of scarcity in a lot of ways. And so you have to screw up, you have to learn. I mean, machine learning just makes mistakes millions of times over to get to that perfect understanding of whether it's identifying a cat or just, understanding if a machine is broken and how. So we live in a world where if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And so I would encourage people to fail quickly and find what works. That would be my top tip.
That's amazing advice. And speculatively speaking, if you had a superpower in the metaverse, Web3, spatial web, and it could translate to in real life good deeds, what would it be and why?
I think it would be ESP. I would love to biometrically see how everybody is, thinking and feeling all of the time, so that I could be more compassionate and understanding in how I interact with them. There are a lot of layers between all of us right now. And I think, the pandemic has kind of exposed a lot of that. All of us are having trouble going through what we've been through, whether it's, acute loss from illness, or whether it's just the exhaustion of, sitting at the same desk in our house for 2 years in a row. And I think, one of the things that's interesting about all of this digital capture technology is that it can be analyzed, and could be analyzed for good. And if you knew from the way people were standing or breathing or twitching their muscles that they were ready for you to stop talking, you would stop talking more quickly. And I think the world would be a better place. So I think I would just like to understand people better.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And finally, where can everyone buy your fantastic book?
Oh, thank you. Probably the easiest place is Amazon.com. We believe that it is available in all countries around the world where people can buy stuff on Amazon. And the name of the book is The Augmented Workforce: How AR, AI, and 5G will impact every dollar you make. And you don't have to make dollars. You can make any kind of currency, but it's a place to start. And if you get stuck and for some reason you don't see it on Amazon, you can go to theaugmentedworkforce.com or find Cathy or me Cathy Hackl or John Buzzell on LinkedIn, and we will help you get hooked up with a copy. But hey, it's been fantastic being on your show, Sammy, Vinci, like whatever we want to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. Well, thank you for being on the show.
And my pleasure.